Good afternoon from the UK. I have fellow Brit here, Paul Gitsham, in sunny Coventry, and I'm in sunny Aylesbury, and long may it last. I think a day or two, and then maybe we'll have the non-summer back. But anyway, so
Um,
we're
uh,
here to talk about you and your writing, and then we see all your books in the background, which is great. So we've got plenty of fodder for the follow-ups, where we'll come back and pick a book. In theory, start at the first and then have subsequent chats with your books in more detail. But you've had been reading your biography on uh, Amazon. You've had I was going to use the word interesting, but a quirky career before the current one.
yeah, I've done quite a few things. I mean, I started off as a biologist, as a researcher, did a PhD,
Mm.
and then retrained as a science teacher. Um, and along the way, I've had a few interesting interesting jobs between sort of posts and that, and then yeah, the writing just sort of grew alongside the teaching as a hobby initially, and then
Mm.
take over more. And these days, I'm not physically in the classroom anymore. I do online tutoring.
Right.
GCSE, if you're interested, GCSE science.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, got
My
any kids
husband's
with
the
GCSE?
scientist. I'm definitely the arts. Yes, he's the science and engineering and uh,
For very reasonable rates
take
for
something
anybody who wants.
apart, put it back. Okay, yes. No, more than happy. We're here to plug whatever you want to plug. There's no problem at all.
I mean, I also I mark GCSEs as well. I've just
Mm.
finished doing the summer lot.
Mm.
That was a sort of epic 6 weeks of marking round the clock
Mm. Yeah.
for
So
GCSEs.
how did you get into writing? If you were doing something completely different.
Oh, I mean, you know what? I've got the same story as so many people. I always wrote. I just
Right.
loved it as a kid. What's the thing that make you perk up during an English lesson? Right, when you just write a short story
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
Right,
My
okay,
favorite format.
absolutely. When you
Yeah.
write a short
Yeah. Yeah.
story, yeah, okay, define short. If you
Did
want
it?
4 pages, do you miss? Right, okay.
Right.
So here's 20. Um, and the teacher's
Was
like,
she your
oh,
was she
great,
your
wonderful.
was she your first editor then?
To be honest, no. I
Whittling
mean,
it
it was just
down.
it
Right.
was only four, but you did 20. But we really enjoyed it. So I
Yeah.
got first cheating is probably better. I mean,
Right.
one of my when I left primary school, the teacher actually wrote, "You'll be the next Roald Dahl." But although for balance short of it, you're never going to be anything if you don't improve your handwriting.
Right. But who needs
Uh,
handwriting these days? It's all you only need
oh,
it to sign the books.
oh
Everything's
yeah,
done
but
on. Or do you? What's your first draft? Is it
oh no,
handwritten?
at
Is it
first
on the
draft, so
computer?
everything's on computer. No, it's
Yeah.
just occasionally I
I
don't
think
hold
most
a
people
pen.
do.
and,
Yeah.
and it is getting harder and harder. When I was doing the GCSE marking, we get given the mark scheme obviously,
Mm.
and then we have additional training and how to apply the mark scheme. So my mark scheme is filled with notes. So I print it, and then with a pen I'm marking, and yeah, only give if. Um,
Sure.
and then as you go along, actually, you get feedback as you mark. It's a very controlled process, actually.
Mm.
Um, so I'm there, I'm just looking at the handwriting. So I was just putting all of the paperwork away because we've done for this year. And it was just like,
Mm.
I better stay my handwriting. But
But it's as long as you can read it. If no one else has to read it, that's absolutely
that's
fine.
it. I mean,
As long as you can.
do nice handwriting if I really need to. Just had to work hard at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just done like birthday cards and stuff like that for my
Right.
mum, and that was
Okay.
no problem.
Nice. Yeah.
Used to
See
write
what?
and write marks in kids' books and stuff. They could read it, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the challenge then, isn't it?
yeah,
To read your handwriting.
yeah, I have
Well,
to read those.
in your biography, it says that one of your jobs was as a receptionist, and I like short stories. I like working in short stints. So when I was made redundant and moved up here, I went temping for years, and I'd say I don't really want anything for more than a month, and some of those jobs were reception,
Mm,
and I don't really like talking to people on the phone.
no,
Whenever my phone goes off and I ignore it
I,
anyway if it's a number I don't recognize. But
to be honest, I didn't do much on the phone. It was a very unusual position. It was just one through an agency. and I
Mm,
ended up there for a year. And what had happened was I was between jobs basically. I'd finished postdoc research career, and then I
mm,
at Manchester, and I was looking for another position. I ended up going to Canada in the end a year later.
mm,
Um, but in that year, when I'm applying for jobs and all that sort of stuff,
mm,
you have an income obviously, and I did temp work because actually I was at a sports centre. It was a tennis centre. I know nothing about tennis, didn't matter. They just needed someone who would do the desks in the evening, and
mm.
essentially mostly it was face to face because the people coming in they'd hired the
Sure.
courts. You take the
Yeah.
money off and stuff. But the
Yeah.
advantage was, you see, basically the courts changed every hour.
Mm,
So there'd be a flurry of about 20 minutes, 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after, sort
mm.
of now, and then 40 minutes of nothingness.
Right.
And it's nice. I mean, I could sit and read a book and stuff like that, which was great.
Mm,
But
mm,
I actually did do some writing. I tried NaNoWriMo and stuff, and it
yeah,
was
me
just
too.
because I've always been writing. I've always been doing stuff. Mostly as a kid, it was derivative stuff from talking cars and stuff, which you can always work out what television I've been watching. But this was, the first attempt at writing a novel, and it never got anywhere, as most people's don't. But
Mm,
actually, it taught me a lot of discipline. I really enjoyed it, and between doing the job hunting, which itself can be a full-time job, and you've got to
sure.
write individual cover letters to each laboratory,
Yeah.
explaining
Yeah.
why they might want to speak to you
Mm,
or offer you a position. Alongside that, I was doing writing, and so in fact, it was very good. And only occasionally did the phone go and interrupt me, which was most disappointing. I
mm.
can't say I'm busy getting
Yeah, I
paid
was,
to do my own thing here.
yeah.
How dare you
What
get me do work?
one of mine was as an overflow receptionist for a car hire company or car lease company, and so the main reception. So I covered her lunch, but the main receptionist was on reception, and then anything if she was on the phone, it would trip over to mine. And I was in the grounds of Barclaycard in Northampton, and so that overlooked the lakes, which was lovely. So I just sit and write and read,
Yeah,
and I
great.
probably had one phone call an hour. It was perfect for whatever it was back then, £8.50 or something an hour.
Yeah, the only problem is it's hard to earn enough money to live on, but
Mm,
it's a nice position. Yeah, it's a nice job if you can get it.
yeah, yeah. So have you always written dark? Have you written light stuff? Do you read light stuff?
I mean, I read primarily crime fiction. I've got a massive to
Mm,
be read thing, but I I I write. I read across the genre. Really, I've read some really
mm,
dark stuff. I've just finished M.W. Craven's The Mercy Chair,
okay,
and don't get much darker than that. And that's
right.
after he's lightened it, apparently.
Okay.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Well, I
Yeah,
can't recommend it enough. But
yeah.
yeah, that was really dark. On the flip side, my wife and I love the Thursday Murder Club series. I mean, I know it
Yep.
divides, but I think they're
Yeah.
fantastic.
Richard Osman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
he's been a great. When
Mm,
I got a chance to speak to him briefly over the summer, and I said how much we really, really liked his
mm.
stuff. And,
So was that at
I've
Harrogate?
it was a Harrogate, that was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there, and you know, I always defend him because you get a lot of people, and there's a strong amount of jealousy because yes, he does get a ridiculous amount of free publicity. I mean, you
Mm,
look at the amount of stuff he gets in the BBC, and it's because of who he is. And
mm.
yes, a lot of us do feel a bit, slightly shortchanged by the amount of publicity we can
Yeah.
gather. That being said, I think his books are superb, and you know what? If I'd written one of any of those books, ignore how the sales and stuff, I'd
Yeah.
just be very, very pleased. I'm a
Yeah.
damn good book I've written there. I'll be very happy with myself, and I'm writing stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the thing about um, people like that and Lee Child and so on and so forth is that the publishers that they're with have then got the capital, the money to then support smaller authors
Oh
like
yeah, that's
us.
that's the argument they
Um,
give, the trickle down economic side
right.
of it.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I'm not convinced.
Right.
I've spoken to a couple of publicists, after a few drinks, and even a bit
Mm,
more candid.
mm,
And it's a simple fact of the matter is a mid-list author gets a day's publicity for their book. They're in the calendar. They have
yeah.
one day dedicated, and that's it.
Right.
They don't employ more publicists to to provoke these folks.
Mm.
They just dedicate more of the existing resources, and I think that's the issue. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, the money, the trickle down from the money is very helpful, but if that was the case, we've had a huge explosion growth in the celebrity driven books, which are making huge amounts of profit. We've had a huge growth in that.
Yeah.
Why
Off.
are advances basically at an all-time low, and mostly on existing? I never had an advance, and many
Mm.
of the authors I know never had an advance. Um, and basically, they said there are now two types of advance. There is no advance, or there is a six-figure advance. There is
Right.
nothing in between. And
Yeah.
years ago, it used to be the 4 or 5 figure advance, which is,
Mm.
if you think about it, basically 6 months to a year's wages on a normal
Yeah.
job. That's what the
Yeah.
advance was.
Yeah. To
But
give you time to write it, take time off and write it.
doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore. It's
Yeah.
it's now the big headline banner 6 or 7 figure advances, and that's not
Yeah.
just me ranting. That's
No,
actually from a
absolutely. That's exactly what I've heard. Yeah.
done by the
I
Society
don't
Board.
know anybody who hasn't got one or the other. Who's got
Exactly.
somewhere in between.
And to be fair, we run the risk of whinging and being sounded very ungrateful,
Mm.
and that's absolutely right. But it has distorted the market somewhat,
Mm.
and that's driven by the publishers. I mean, I've not got anything against writers that are these people are taking advantage of it.
Mm.
I have an issue with unacknowledged ghostwriting, which
Yes.
makes very clear that Richard Osman writes his own stuff. There's no question about that, and
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
I'll always defend him to the hilt. He's
Mm.
written that book,
Mm. But there
and
are
he should
some
be well
authors who
credited.
haven't even read it. They've
Oh
just put their
yeah,
name on it, and
incredibly
that's it.
true.
Yep.
And I read an article recently in a trade magazine about ghostwriters
Mm.
defending their art. And I don't have a problem with ghostwriters doing autobiographies
Hmm.
because people have an interesting story to tell, but don't have the skills to tell it. And I want to know
Yeah.
your story. So
Yes.
if you need help to write that, that's absolutely fine. And let's
Yeah.
face it, we all kind of accept that you probably haven't written your autobiography.
Yeah.
That's relatively open. But it's when people write fiction and then they go on thing and then they lie on television because say, oh yes, well when I was writing, I think you didn't write it. We know. I know the person who did write it.
Yeah. And
And then
then
it's like,
very, very occasionally they get caught out because they can't answer a specific question
yeah, and I think it's
if they haven't even read the book. Anyway, so
no, no,
I
no,
love,
that is honest. By all means, put
yeah.
if you want to team up with someone to write, knock yourself out. I mean, even
Yeah.
some of the biggest names in fiction over the years. I mean, James Patterson's famous
James
for it,
Patterson's,
but
yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke in his later years teamed up with
Mm.
other science fiction authors because he had
Yeah.
more ideas and he could write, and that was
Yeah.
fine. You look at the
Yeah.
cover and you've got both names on there.
Yeah.
And quite often it'll be obvious it was actually physically written by the other name, but it was
Mm.
him who came up with the ideas.
Yeah.
Fine, not a problem. It's when they
Yeah.
don't credit it at all and just say, this is all my work. You think, hang on a
Yeah.
minute, you've been
Yeah.
for a year and write that. And
Yeah.
please don't stop sitting there with people saying, well, I could never write a book. I'm always so impressed with your skills. And you should at this point say, yeah, well, I didn't actually write this book. That
Yeah.
person over there, they wrote their own
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coming back to your books,
All right, yeah.
um, in the
By me,
background,
by
are they
myself.
they're in order. One,
They
two,
are,
three,
yes.
five. Yep.
So what we've
So
got
you
is
got 13 altogether?
got 13. So these are
Yep.
9 paperbacks.
Okay.
And then there are 4 shorter novellas, which are ebook only because
Yep.
it's not worth converting them to paperback.
Yeah.
And these 9 are also all available on audio as well. They're
Oh,
fantastic
okay.
audio narrator.
Yep.
Yeah, a guy called Mount Williams has done all
Right.
of them. And he, I
Oh,
mean, wow. I mean, we're not going to talk about Mount as much as I love him because we'll be
okay.
here until Zoom tells us.
Well, we will be
Right.
back. We will be back talking about each
Yeah.
book. So then that's
Oh,
a
there we go then.
golden opportunity to, because then I might ask you who you would have if it's filmed. But
Oh,
that's for another time. That's for
yeah,
the
yeah,
next time.
exactly. Yeah, I've
Yes.
always had one in. He's probably a bit old now. If you'd asked me the question 10 years ago, I knew exactly who. But
Okay.
I'm
Go on then.
sure.
Go on then. Tell us.
Because he's from commentary.
What's this?
Rose from Clive Owens.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, he's great.
Inside Man. Yes, yes,
I
yes.
mean,
Okay.
he's probably he's
I'd
older
still
than
have
Warren
him.
is now. But then the magic of Hollywood. I mean,
Yeah.
now
Right
and
lighting.
I'm willing to make certain artistic compromises.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
this one is not Warren Jones. That's the one that's coming out in
It's
October,
October, isn't it? Yeah.
October the 10th. Yeah, and that's a domestic thriller. It's standalone. So yes, I
Okay.
fancied writing something that wasn't a police procedure because I've got lots of ideas and they wouldn't fit into a police procedure
Yeah.
book. That's the thing. They just think no, there's no way I can realistically shoehorn that into my existing series
Yeah.
without it looking silly. But I
Yeah.
really want to write it.
Yeah. Have you ever put anybody you know in your books
Yes,
and ki-
as
and
they know.
killed them off and killed them off?
Well, the last straw, the very first one, there's a professor basically found murdered in his office, his throat slit.
Mm,
Now, I had to be very careful, and that it was not my own university professor, the guy I worked with my PhD. He's a
mm,
really lovely bloke, and in fact, I saw him at his 70th birthday, and I did say to him, "Look, it is not you. I just want to be absolutely clear."
yeah.
But and I named a few people in the department, male and female, and
Mm.
others that I had worked with. And I said, it's kind of a lot of their traits matched. And they were like,
Yes.
oh, yes, yes.
Yes. Because people who know
One person in
writers,
particular, a woman.
okay. Okay.
And
Yes.
I mean, I mean, this guy's sexual impropriety and all sorts. There wasn't really any of that from these characters,
Mm,
but he was just a full-on tosser. That's no other way of putting it, really. And I took
yeah.
some of those, some of the things he'd done were noticeable. And when I mentioned this one person who we both knew very well, he was like,
Mm,
"Oh yeah, so yeah,
oh,
I can see
yes. Yeah.
that."
So who
So
do you have any, because these are traditionally published, aren't they? Do you have do you get sent a couple of copies, a couple of different covers and get to choose, or do you have input in the whole process?
well, yes and no.
Okay. Because
Um,
they can,
there's
it's
a
a
bit of
bit,
a I'm what's known in trade as mid list. This means that
right.
I basically I wouldn't say I get what I'm given, but I don't have that
Hmm.
much input.
No.
I've been able to do some tweaks. There's a
Okay.
couple of covers I'd pushed back on a bit more, and they'd said, "I'm sorry, but no, we're having that." I mean, we did come to a
Yeah.
compromise in the end, but I mean, it wasn't. They weren't thrilled about it. It is very much a case of, "Here's your new cover. What do you think of it? Please feel free to feedback." And you feedback,
Yes,
that's not
as long
going
as
with
it's
that. Some of this
fabulous.
positive
Yes.
feedback, yeah.
Yes. And
However,
what?
I get to choose this one.
Yes.
This is, I
Yeah.
mean,
No, it's very impactful.
but it's the
The
opening scene.
fire
I
in
mean,
it. Yeah.
literally, this guy comes home and
Right.
finds his garden shed on fire,
Yeah.
which I mean would be upsetting for anybody, particularly when you've got a really nice lawnmower. But his
Yeah.
wife's in there, and that's what sort of
Oh,
kicks everything.
okay,
Exactly.
interesting.
That's where we go from. We
Right.
see the build up to how we got to here, and we
Yeah.
see the aftermath. I mean, the tagline that
Hence
comes
the
with it is,
title. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the tagline, which you probably can't quite see
I
on the top of
can't.
the
No,
cover,
not there.
the fire, the fallout, the aftermath. And
Brilliant.
that's basically how it goes. And in many ways, it's a story of love. It's a story of brotherly love. I mean, his brother
Okay.
supports him throughout this, and then
Mm,
he's trying to build his life on that. So it's got
mm,
those elements. But yeah, what happened? How did we get here? It's everything as it seems. But
mm,
I basically said to the guy, wonderful bloke, Patrick, at Bespoke Book Covers.
mm.
I said, right, I want a picture of a burning garden shed. Um, and it's at night. It's a nice area, so you can't see the neighbours' houses.
Yeah.
Okay. And it came back about 3 days later, and I just went,
No.
"Oh wow!" And
Yeah.
literally tiny tweaks.
Yeah.
It looked the originally it looked as if there was a light on in the garden shed window. I said, "No, there's no light
Okay.
on there. So could we just have it so
Yeah.
it's the flames you can see? Fine,
Yeah.
tweak the colours."
Yeah.
He's got fantastic instincts. He said, "I hope you don't mind." He said, "I just added this. I could remove it very easily." He said, "A discarded woman's shoe outside." And I'm
Ooh.
like, oh, if I'd come to you to do the
Yeah.
cover while I was
Yeah.
still writing a book, put
Right.
that in. But of course,
Is it?
obviously, that's something the police would have picked up on, and
Yeah.
I sort of said, I can't use it. But God, his
Right.
instincts were spot
Yeah.
on, and it's brilliant.
Was it a red woman shoe? Because so many
Uh,
covers with women on have got
a yellow
red.
coat and coat. It's what it's yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
hilarious. Someone had took a photograph. I think it was Crime Fest. It was sitting in the back,
Mm.
and there was a woman wearing a yellow coat, just
Okay.
like the ones you see in all the covers. And then, of
Yep.
course, they sitting behind it, took a photograph of the back,
Yeah.
and then she said, "She's here, she's
Yeah.
come."
Yeah. Because
And then the same,
they
and then
are all
one,
from the back. You very rarely, it's like all yours, you have the silhouettes. You either have a silhouette or you have the back of somebody. You
yeah,
very rarely
I
get
like,
those.
yeah, and I like
Mm.
that. There was a real consistency because when I first published, so I published the first three books and novella, and then we had a long gap, which we can talk about later if we want to. Um, and then we sort of restarted the series, carried on, but it was a big gap.
Mm.
And the original covers were black, and then they just had coloured writing on them, and they were very striking. I liked them,
Mm.
but it was very limited. It was actually run out of things to do, and I just signed a 6 book deal with them.
Ooh,
So um, you can see them thinking, okay, how are we going to do this? So what they did in the end was like, we're just going to redo from scratch, and that's when they went back and they redesigned
did
everything. But you can
those.
see,
Yeah.
and
Well, the
even
thing
if you
is,
look,
they've got the format, haven't they? You can tell once you know one, you can tell that it's yours. It's like Lee Child.
yeah,
They're very, I want to say formulaic, but that's
mm,
often used negatively, but it's
oh, it's not
not.
negative.
Because
And
readers,
Andy,
they know what they want, they know what they're used to, and so when they pick up a book, they want
the
to.
meat,
They're
the meat
90% sure
is
they know
in
that's there for them anyway. So,
ones in the
so
UK, the ones in America are crap, but it's
oh really?
yeah, they often don't have photographs on. They're quite often block colours and stuff like that.
Oh,
In my
okay.
personal opinion, I think they're unattractive.
Yeah.
But apparently, the focus groups have shown that works in the US, and that's his
Yeah.
branding. So there's a consistent branding in the US ones. There's a consistent ones, and I've got all of the Lee Child ones downstairs. And if you turn the covers
Mm,
out, you can see it's the same design
yeah.
elements. And
Yeah.
I was looking. I did actually try to contact the woman who did the covers, but
Mm,
it doesn't look like she works anymore.
okay.
I yeah, one or two of them when I looked inside the book it
Mm,
said because I just assumed it was somebody on the team at HarperCollins, and it's not.
right.
Everybody in the book cover industry is freelance these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh,
As our
that's useful to
editors.
know. I can
Yeah.
actually contact the persons who've worked for HarperCollins or whoever and
Mm,
say, would you do me one similar? And
mm,
that's part of what you do. They ask you to send some covers that you could like. And I
mm,
sent them a handful of ones within the genre because this is domestic thriller rather than police procedure.
yeah.
It needs to look completely different. I do not want people, no matter how many times I tell them this is not a
Mm,
Warren Jones, I do
mm,
not want 1 star reviews saying, well, Warren never turned up. And you think,
yeah.
oh, that
Because there
kind of
will
makes it
be.
obvious.
Yeah.
That makes it
And
obvious that it's not.
I like the fact that your name's bigger because in
Yeah, I can't.
theory, the more famous an author gets, the bigger their name. And also, this is for the next one, the name will go at the top.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I said to him very specifically, I said, look, I can't sell a book yet on my name,
Mm,
and particularly because this is a slightly different genre as well. Um,
mm,
I said, so the title will be the bigger element, but
yeah.
but my name obviously prominently on the front, and
Yeah.
underneath it does actually say from the creator of DCI Warren Jones.
Yeah.
So I thought
Brilliant.
I'll let you know that who I am because I am hoping to pull across readers from
Yeah.
Warren Jones who
The
do you
thing is, they
fancy
can,
writing a bit
yeah, they,
different? It's not Warren, but
yeah.
me.
Yeah. But yes, readers are going to like the character, but then there must come a point. I'm not saying that 13 is enough, but there must come a point where they love your writing and they want something
Yeah,
new, something
absolutely.
different that
I'm
then
hoping.
could become, even if it's standalones, could then become more of your
Yeah,
filtering out
I hope to
elsewhere.
do another series. I mean, I've been working on it. It's just a question. We're going to find a publisher and whatnot.
Mm, mm,
Um, but I would like to continue doing the standalones alongside it because
yeah,
standalones are very different. And
yeah.
actually, I like reading that standalones. That's the thing. It's
Mm.
I like things that happen to nice people living in nice houses having horrible things happen to them. I like that
Because
genre
they
of book.
do. Because they do in real life. They do.
So,
Yeah.
and there is a freedom with standalones, and that is, of course, that the
Mm.
characters don't have to come back.
Yeah.
So, you know, even books about bent cops and stuff. If it's a
Mm.
series, that bent cop has to keep on getting away with it still, because
Yeah.
otherwise they ain't going to be in any later books. And obviously you can't kill them unless you. I mean, there are ways around it, of course, there always are, but
Mm.
realistically, they've got to come back each time. With the standalone, particularly third person standalone, all
Mm.
bets are off, and
Mm.
I like that freedom. I can leave an absolute mess, and I don't need to tidy up after myself afterwards. I can just tell the story I need to do, and if it turns
Yeah.
out that those who survive are going to have a really crappy rest of their lives, well,
Uh,
that's how the book ended,
yeah.
and that's fine. I just love that. I love that freedom, and
Yeah.
also getting to invent some new characters, ones I'm not familiar with. I mean, the
Yeah.
characters in these, um, they've got the two brothers who are kind of at the centre. It's Seamus and Dominic. They have um, Irish ancestry. Now that's
Mm.
going back to my childhood. I went to Catholic school in Coventry,
Mm.
and we were very unusual that we had no Irish ancestry. Most of
Okay.
my friends were second, third generation immigrant
Mm.
Irish, because if you know the history of Coventry at all, it was absolutely flattened during the Second World War, and
Right.
so they needed huge numbers of people to come in to help rebuild. And
Mm.
so one of the first wave of migrants were Irish labourers coming over to help rebuild, and of course they
Mm.
stayed. But Coventry has
Right.
a disproportionately high number of Catholic churches, really, for a
Okay.
city in the middle of England, and that
Yeah.
reflects the Irish diaspora
Right.
bringing in their
Yeah.
culture.
Well,
And of
it's
course, I know these people. I know them very well, and so
yeah.
I wanted these guys. I don't go into it very much. We rarely touch upon it, but it was like
Yeah. It's an
it just seemed
homage
natural
almost. Yeah.
writing them. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
I need to be able to picture these characters in my mind, and
Yeah.
yeah, I knew them. I went to
Yeah.
school with them. I
Yeah.
mean, it's as simple as
But
that.
Coventry sounds a little bit like, or sort of parallel with Corby, because I worked in Corby. I've never lived there, but I worked there for 4 years. And 98% of Corby is Scot. They have their own Highland games. They have deep
Wow.
fried Mars bars. And that was to do with British Steel. That
Right.
was British Steel and
Hey,
Tata Steel and that
well, this is
became
it. The
and all
later
that.
waves of migration into Coventry to build up the city were, of course, the car
Mm.
factories.
Yes.
Coventry's
Yeah,
always been
Jaguar
manufactured.
and
Jaguar, Land
yeah,
Rover,
yeah.
but there was dozens of other car factories which you never even hear of.
Mm.
Triumph, things like that. They've
Right.
all closed down. Massey Ferguson's tractors was
Yeah.
Coventry. That
Okay.
closed and it got planned.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of my friends' fathers lost their jobs in the 80s
Right.
and 90s because all the car factories closed. But
Yeah.
that was interesting because that brought in another wave of people. Made a lot of migration in from the Commonwealth, basically.
Okay.
So we've got a very vibrant black community, very, very vibrant Asian community.
Mm.
You got the Folsall Road, and that at the time when I was a kid was primarily Asian. It's diversified more since then. When
Mm.
I was a kid, and I always say this, and people always laugh, but when I was a very small child, I thought a turban was a part of the uniform for West Midlands travel.
Oh.
Because one of the things that when they came in, the migrants came in, was that
Mm.
bus driving was very popular amongst
Mm-hmm.
particularly
Mm.
Sikhs, which is interesting because you've got the parallel with the Bristol bus problems, where Bristol was refusing to employ black bus drivers in the 50s and 60s,
Right.
and there was basically a big social movement that
Yeah.
finally got that overturned. But anyway, in Coventry, yeah, we had a big
Mm.
population. Now most of the drivers seem to be Eastern European, so it's our next wave migration, and that's
Mm.
what I love about Coventry. I mean, it's just had these wonderful waves of people coming
Yeah.
in over the
Yeah.
years, integrating fully into our city. I mean,
Yeah.
we have not had any issues, touch wood, with the far right
Mm.
thugs coming over.
Yes. Latest issues. Yeah. Having travelled so much, talking about places, you mentioned Manchester and Toronto in
Yeah.
your biography. Are you thinking of setting your books anywhere else? I know you do home counties, Hertfordshire,
Um,
with references to Coventry.
uh,
Uh,
the,
uh, anywhere
so I
further
am trying
afield?
to localize. So I mean, the aftermath, to be honest, is somewhat generic, and that's because the geography of the place. I mean, it's just basically I needed a valley, where
Okay.
their houses are up on a valley and the town's below.
Mm.
Not, yeah, I mean, it just worked better if it was like that. And I thought, well, I don't really know anywhere like that. So it was easier just to have a kind of generic, and I made up a
Yeah.
few place names, and
Yeah.
they go to various places on the train and stuff. Um, when I wrote the Warren Jones, it was a fictional North Hertfordshire town, which
Mm.
was geographically placed.
Okay.
People who lived in that town. And I actually gave a book talk in that town, and they realised, oh, that is here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a writing trick, by the way, if anyone's a writer. By giving it a real world geographical location and just making it a
Mm.
fictional place,
Mm.
it'd be consistent on Google Maps.
Right.
So actually, it always takes Warren the same amount of time to get to Cambridge or to Welwyn Garden City because I put it into Google Maps and
Yeah.
how long does it take to get from this real world place to
Well,
there, and it's consistent.
yeah.
But
Well, I
anyway,
think it's easier. It's you kind of get both sides of the coin because if you're creating somewhere new, you can do whatever you like, but you still have to. And I was going to mention about having a good memory with your standalones. You don't have to have a good memory, whereas you either have to have very comprehensive set of notes to write 13 books in a series, or an extremely good memory, or both. Whereas if you're, because in my serial data is set all around Northampton, and there was one place that kept changing from right at starting it to finishing the editing, it kept closing, and in the end, I just had to call it something else and be
yeah,
done with it. Um, so you get, because you've got, if you create this new place, you've got no one writing to you saying, yeah, but that's a one-way street and they're going up the wrong way.
I'll say that, but Lee Child apparently has had letters from people saying, "I think you find you can't turn left on that street," and Lee Child's
Yeah.
like, "The place is fictional."
Yeah.
People are always nutters, but no, you are absolutely right. I mean, that was one of the reasons I wrote about Middlesbrough, was because the place I was living didn't have anything I needed. I needed a university for the first book, and I
Mm,
didn't want a big behemoth like Cambridge up the road. I wanted a
no.
small regional university.
Yeah.
I wanted a city world in one episode, or a cinema of some description.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted a ruined abbey for the fifth book, Forgive Me Father, that's set in a ruined abbey that's several hundred years old, and that
Okay.
was tremendously good fun because my wife and I enjoy it, we like going to visit abbeys and churches and ruins and stuff. So
Mm.
we spent I never declared any. I've done tax, I should have done, but we used to go and visit loads of places, and I'd be sitting there going,
Expenses.
"Oh, I'll have one of those in
Yeah.
my abbey," and I
Mm.
actually sketched on PowerPoint, very crude drawing of what the
Mm.
grounds for the modern day abbey were, with the modern day murders set,
Mm.
and then actually did a one of about 800 years earlier.
Mm.
I modified it. So I had, I mean, it never really comes up, and neither did any of the research did about the Reformation and stuff about the dissolution of the monasteries. None of that came up really
Mm.
other than one line, but it meant I had a real understanding of it. So fictional towns are great. I mean, I'm basically been a fictional town planner.
Mm.
Um, but in the Common Enemy, there's a riot in town of far right activists having a big riot,
Mm.
and I basically took the rough layout of the town I was in. I thought, well, I might as well take a rough layout,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then put in all the shops, including, because the book's set about 2 years before it's published, including things like British Home Stores, which are still there, and that.
Oh, see,
It
in
meant that I could
Northampton.
picture these guys running down the high street being chased
Yeah.
by the police, and
Yeah.
I could mention the shops as they went past.
Yeah.
And even if it gets cut out in the edit, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
helps you write it.
Yeah. See, when I lived in Northampton, I was still there when British Home Stores closed, and they'd got a sort of scaffolding, sort of scaffolding. It was more boarding on the front, and all that was left, the sign would stick out that said BHS, and all that was all you could see was half of the H and the B, I think, because it went from out to in, and it looked like a help me kind of thing. Anyway, we're almost out of time, so I'd like to just touch. You mentioned editing. How do you find the editing process? Are you a good recipient of your
I like to think
editor?
I am. I mean, touch wood, I've never had any very bad sets of edits. I do
Right.
know, I do have friends and colleagues who, you know, they've had they've sent this book off and it's come back and their editor's just been like, no, we've got to
Yeah.
complete. I've never had that, thank God. seems my instincts are broadly on track.
Mm.
Um,
But you have beta readers anyway, don't you?
I'm sorry.
You have beta readers anyway, don't you? Do they get
Yeah,
it
I have them.
before?
My
Yeah.
parents both read it, and my wife, which is useful. They give me feedback, and also some
Mm.
very good initial proofreading as well.
Yeah.
Um, then yes, there's those times where they say take stuff out or add more stuff, and you know what? It's usually fine. I mean, I've
Mm.
always said because the fact is that, like most writers, we're terribly insecure. We skim past the first part. So the 2 pages telling you what a wonderful book it is and how much they enjoy it. We skim past that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't like that bit, page
Wait for
139.
the and get to the
Um,
but.
exactly.
Yeah.
I always say I'm allowed to sulk for 24 hours.
Okay.
But then roll your sleeves up, and usually within that 24 hours, already back of my brain starts saying, "Well, okay, I think that's going to go." But I tell you what, you could do instead.
Yeah.
And actually, every time it's always been an improvement. And usually, my editors have always been very good. And don't forget, it's still your book. And if
Yes.
you, unless
Absolutely. I'm the same.
leave it in, if you
Mm.
really feel you have to.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, I think unless particularly I was writing for HarperCollins, unless it was I'd put something in that was really objectionable, and frankly, HarperCollins would damage HarperCollins' reputation. I think
Yeah.
generally they would have eventually said, "No, look, okay, fine, keep it." My
Yeah.
biggest bugbear is it was length. I mean, there's been a big push recently to get page count down.
Right.
And the reason, and so there'd been a trend when Kindle first came out and everything was going to ebook and then maybe to print. So
Mm.
a lot of press was there. People, oh, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
when Amazon does charge by the size of the computer file, but it's actually a
Mm.
very very low charge, and it's trivial really. The
Mm.
difference between a 400 page and 600 pages isn't anything. If the size of your cover image, you'd be more likely to affect
Yeah.
the cost.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of books did bloat, and obviously some genres are naturally. I mean, I think a lot of fantasy books, if there's anything less than 150,000 words, people are
Yeah.
like,
It's a novella.
you're shortchanging
Yeah.
me or what?
And the historical as
But
well. You get
mine was
10
one of the
Follett bricks.
they want it below 100, and the reason, quite bluntly, is paper costs.
Mm.
If you go to look at that, so I've been looking at the costs of printing on demand and stuff like that,
Mm.
and my goodness. So there's been a movement recently to try and do what they call environmentally friendly printing, which is
Okay.
where they're using less white paper.
Mm.
So things like traditionally in a book, the chapter always starts on the right-hand page, and it'll be a
Yes.
white page. That's a
Yeah.
waste of a page.
Yeah.
I'm not having that. I've cut that out in the aftermath. I'd say get rid of that.
Mm.
It's a waste of money, a
Mm.
waste of paper, waste of
Yeah.
resources. Why am I
Well,
doing it?
when I was self-publishing my first book, I looked at that because I assumed they all started on the right-hand side. So I got a variety, and also when I was teaching, they were quite useful as examples. Um, I got a variety of ages of books. So there might have been book novels that were 30 years old, and some of them started on the right-hand side only, and some of them started on the left-hand side. And I thought that was really odd. But yeah, I
Mm,
totally get it now. Totally
yeah,
get it
yeah,
now.
it does. It's say the massive spike in cost of
Mm,
paper, but also the
yeah,
environmental cost.
yeah,
You can also get there's some new fonts coming out and new typesetting methods that reduce the amount of ink that's used.
right. Well,
Yeah, unfortunately at the moment you have to pay to go on this course to do it.
okay.
Although the blokes who I was reading about it said, and then tell as many people as you want. So you know
Right.
you don't.
It'll be
Yeah,
on Google. Be on Google
yeah.
somewhere.
He come
Yeah,
up with this way of typesetting. So I must admit I haven't done that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when I chose the font, I used so Garamond is a very popular font. It's not actually free. People don't realize
Right.
this.
Okay.
However, there is a free version. So basically, Garamond was a font that was I think it was 16th or 17th century. A guy called
Mm,
Garamond came up with this font, and everyone
okay.
still uses it. But
Mm,
um, when people turned it into a digital font, that came with a patent and a copyright, and you have to
right.
pay a license if you want to use it.
Okay.
However, because it's based on this Garamond from the 16th century.
Yeah.
An open font license have gone and just scanned it and made the font themselves. But they
Right.
can't copy. They're not can't infringe this guy's copyright from the 16th
Yeah.
century.
No, you think that long ago.
Where so EB Garamond is absolutely
Mm.
free to use for commercial use, and
Right.
it's like, oh, use that, please, and it
Yeah.
looks really smart. I just
Yeah.
typeset it and printed it using some software called Atticus.
Oh yes. Yeah,
Galley,
I'm toying with the idea of getting Atticus
no,
because
it's
I
not
just do it in
bad.
Word. I just
Yeah, it's not bad actually. I mean,
mm,
there's a couple of things I changed. It's a relatively new program and it's still being updated.
mm,
It's still so when they have the chapter, it says the chapter. It
mm,
still seems to take up 40% of the page before the text
right.
starts, and I don't want it to take
Yeah.
40%.
No,
I
no,
can't do anything
that would
about that.
drive me slightly nuts.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's not perfect, but I tell you what,
yeah,
it's good, and I liked
yeah,
what I got. So I printed it
yeah,
and I showed it to my wife. She's like, "That's really professional." Drop
yeah,
caps, first few letters, capital.
yeah.
Seen a lot of
That's the thing.
books.
It's again, it's what readers are used to. They're used to a certain style from the traditional publishers. So what's next for you?
So the big thing
You've
is the
got
aftermath. Yeah, that's the
yes.
big thing. So that's
Yep.
10th of October. So it's already
Okay.
available on Amazon.
Hmm.
There will be paperback available same date. Like I said, I've just been typesetting and getting them set. Annoyingly, there's not. Well, there is actually a kind of holding page on Amazon, but they actually insist that the full completed document is uploaded before they'll let you have a proper pre-order page.
Okay.
So you can kind of pre-order as a paperback, but certainly you
Mm.
can pre-order the ebook. And I'm in the process of trying to get them onto all the various other platforms as well.
Sure.
Um, so my wife and I have a guerrilla marketing campaign, as we call it. So this is actually a T-shirt. We've both
Yep.
got it.
Spotted that.
Anyone to Crime
Yeah.
Festival, to where Harrogate Crime Festival has seen my wife and I wandering
Right.
around.
Yes.
My personal sort of
I didn't
branding.
spot it on. I've kind of I'm trying to stay away a little bit from Facebook because you get so many um expert marketeers trying to
Mm.
help you.
I I'm
Anyway,
fortunate enough to have enough friends that I can go word of mouth,
yeah.
which is nice.
That's how books
Recommend.
get
Yeah.
made, really, isn't it?
But also would I mean, as in, but also for skills. As if I wanted to buy, so for example, the cover designer and stuff like that, or
Mm,
I
mm,
can get people to recommend it to me, which is really
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, when several times a week someone pops into my e-box and says, "Oh, I can make your web page better, dear Paul underscore
Yeah.
Gitsham."
Yeah. Well, I block those and they automatically appear in spam now.
Really not. Yeah, they
Have
do
you
appear.
have you started writing anything else? Or got ideas for
I've
anything
got plenty
else?
of others. Yeah. So like I said, I've got a new series. We're trying to find a publisher at the moment.
Hmm.
That's two police officers, younger ones in their career, and that is actually set in Coventry.
Right.
Because we knew we'd be moving here, and it's my hometown.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. I've even
Yeah.
got you
You
can't
know
see
it.
it. I have one of those, those big laminated maps they have in police stations
Yes.
for the rest
Yes.
of the city.
Yeah.
Got one of
Got
those,
one of those.
probably little
Okay.
tags.
Yeah.
So there'll be a
It
handful of
is easy
invented
to
roads.
write what you know.
Actually, the geography of the country.
Yeah.
I can use
Right.
the map for that.
Yeah. Do
And I've
you?
got another couple of standalones
Okay.
at various stages of editing, and hopefully
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with those.
Good.
Again, they're very different in terms of the storyline, but again, they're domestic thrillers.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the police are in the books, but they're not police procedurals. I
Okay.
wanted to move away from the police procedurals,
Yeah.
keep those in my series because I'm obviously known for those.
Mm.
This is because I also really like domestic thrillers where the police
Okay.
are just people who kind of come in
Happen to
and
be there.
have to be involved,
Yeah.
but it's not
Yeah.
told from the police perspective. I
Yeah.
really like seeing normal people trying to deal with this stuff
Yeah.
themselves.
Final quick question. Do you age your characters for your series? Have you aged DCI Warren Jones?
He's basically about. I think he's about I know his date of birth and everything. He's about three and a
Okay.
half years older than me, I think.
Right.
Um, and because the books were usually a couple of years before the publication date, he was
Mm.
only ever a year or two older than me, and
Right.
that's been fun. I mean, in the last couple of books, he's wearing glasses.
Okay. We had the glasses conversation before the recording.
I'm like,
Yeah, we've
I
both
am
been there.
holding out. I don't quite need them yet. I'm not far off, but I don't quite need them.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
those little things like that.
yeah.
So yes, he is. He is
Well, it's a nice
very.
detail. I think readers like detail, don't they? Especially when there's been somebody, because you get the background of the characters and their lives and their
I love
marital
that.
status and all that kind of
I
thing.
have loads.
And
I had a
yeah,
spreadsheet with key dates in for all the characters in the
yeah,
series, and funny enough, occasionally that would actually provide some inspiration. You're
right.
writing something, you realize, oh, it's so and so's birthday actually falls within the period this
Okay.
book is set, so we
Yeah,
can mention that
yeah.
just as part
Will
of
you?
the Eva of the book. Oh, it's the birthday today.
Yeah. Final question. Will you miss him? Do you think you'll go back to him?
Yeah, I mean, I back to him. He's my character. We do what I want with him. In
Yeah.
fact, I've written another short story. I'll probably get that out soon.
Mm,
Almost certainly just give it away on the website. There's already, by the way, if you go to paulgitcham.com, there is a short story on there already. Help yourself.
hmm Okay.
But I'll be looking perhaps putting a second short story up there.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I haven't ruled out going back to him in later life. There's
Mm,
plenty of stuff that can pick up there.
yeah.
And yes, I will miss him to a degree, but
Keep busy with the other
lots of other
characters.
characters need to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you so much for chatting, taking a time out from your writing to join me today. Thank you very much.
much.